Welcome to The Middle, a podcast about that messy middle in between job loss and the comeback, told by people who've lived it. From CEOs to veterans, athletes to analysts, we talk to folks navigating the unexpected turns in their careers and what comes next when the plan falls apart. These honest conversations will move you, make you think, and maybe even inspire you to leap into something new. Because behind every career pivot is someone just trying to figure it all out. So I'm so excited to talk to you. I know we had chatted earlier. You have been in corporate for over 20 years, correct?
Correct.
What drew you to kind of corporate life? Was it planned or was it happenstance?
It was both. It was very calculated by me. So I grew up in a small town and truly in the middle of nowhere, small town. And why that's relevant is there was very, very little industry there, but there was also it was almost pure entrepreneurship, my dad included. He was the owner of a small business. And I got to see firsthand growing up how intense entrepreneurship was. He had he had up to 8 employees at any point in time. So it was a true small business. But he also worked around the clock all day, every day. And I knew I didn't want that for myself. I didn't want that for my future kids. But I also wanted to build a brand. I don't know if it was the subliminal pressure that I felt. I was rated most likely to succeed by senior superlatives. So I don't know if there was this pressure I was also putting on myself. And I thought that corporate was the path to that. Or if it was my major, I studied industrial and systems engineering. That was also a somewhat hard major to do anything that wasn't in manufacturing. And I'd already had the good fortune of spending a couple years in manufacturing, and I knew that it was not for me because it was very, 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 very defined. I worked in the engineering department, and if I came in 2 minutes after the union workers had already started on the manufacturing line, all of the metal doors slammed behind me, Megan. It was like everybody knew that little Courtney was walking in a couple of minutes late.
Oh, no.
It was so restricting. And that was another thing. I was like, because I always had my end game in mind, which is I'm going to be a mom. I want to be a present mom. And entrepreneurship in my mind did not accomplish that. Though my dad never missed anything. He had a lot of flexibility. He never missed anything, to his credit, but he worked all the time. I didn't want that kind of pressure, and I didn't want the rigidness of manufacturing. And I felt like I needed to build a brand. And my mind, and like my perspective, right, wrong, or indifferent, was that corporate would give that to me. I needed to get out of Southwest Virginia for at least a try, and moved to DC, and DC certainly delivered on that.
Oh, I love DC. It is one of my favorite cities. I explored living in DC years ago, and this was probably back in 2010, 2011, maybe a little later, and it was like, nope, I couldn't afford it then. This was also
so
way
expensive. That's exactly why I left. I did 4 great years there, and then I kept going back to see my clients for 2 more years after I left. I need a little bit more of a yard. I need a little bit less of a commute, and I need my dollar to go a little bit further.
Oh, yeah. My brother lived there for, I'm probably going to get this wrong, and he'll fact check me. I want to say almost 10 years. He lived up by, in like Fox Park, I think is what it is. I have to remember it because he lives in a place in Chicago now that also has a park in it, and sometimes I get them confused. So what happened? You went to college, and then you graduated. Where did you go from there?
So I started out in public sector consulting, then relocated to North Carolina, and got out of traditional management consulting, but then started, I call it consulting for my own company. I got to work for the gentleman that became CEO and ended up serving 3 different CEOs and 3 different administrations. But I spent 16 years there. It was very much the love of my life. I was so calculated when I chose this company because I had already had, the epiphany that manufacturing wasn't for me, that entrepreneurship and small business wasn't for me. Small business specifically. Like I wanted to get away from the politics and all the things related to small business because you wear all the hats. And I didn't want to do that for somebody else. So I knew I needed to go somewhere bigger, but I didn't want to go too big because, again, small town. Blacksburg, Virginia, where Virginia Tech is a small area. So I knew that a medium-sized company was it. And this organization was that place for me. I interviewed with 22 places coming out of college and fell in love with them. I had the good, I guess I'm a very good interviewer because I didn't get turned down from any of the companies. I had a few
Oh,
offers on the table.
wow.
Yeah, didn't get rejected from a single one. Some of them I opted out of. Some of them I got full offers of. Some of them I was in the middle of interviewing. But I chose the place I chose for a reason. It was the place I wanted to call home, and I wanted to make a career there. So 16 years later, there I was.
So you said your first layoff was a couple years ago. Can you
Was
walk
that
us through
company?
that?
Yeah, it was that company.
Okay. Oh, that okay.
That was
So let's
the
get started.
company I fell in love with, and I gave
Oh, that's the one.
so much of my life to. So this has been my biggest lesson, perhaps in life, Megan, is to not give myself away for free. So at that company, again, I worked for. I did go back into consulting, with the ambition of making partner, which I ultimately decided was not for me. And in that role, I was working many, 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 many 80-hour weeks and just grinded it out and had a very abusive boss, for lack of a better term.
Oof.
And he was the pits. But then I got back into administration, and my last role was working for the CEO, another CEO, where I served as his chief of staff and then also led organizational strategy for the firm. And coming out of his tenure, I elected not to continue with the fourth CEO. I'd already been in the land of administration for so long that I'm like, no, this is a time I need to go out and build my own brand and start doing something and start becoming a organization leader myself, as opposed to serving somebody else's vision. So he had made the decision to stand up this this department that apparently he was not very committed to, because 8 months later, he decided to close that department. First of all, was naturally not prepared for that to happen because it was a department that he created. So I thought there was security.
Who is?
I know, right? I mean, investing in something you're only going to give 8 months to, and we were still growing. We had just hired somebody and moved somebody in 2 weeks later. I mean, I was just, the whole decision was mind blowing and very political. But for me, the thing that hurt the most is that we went through this other round of interviews to be able to get placed into another part of the business. And the three of us that were most senior were not given a place. And I remember getting that call. I was out in the pool all day, wasn't expecting to get it, got the call, and just like immediately lost myself. Had to go lock myself in the pantry. I don't know why that's where my head went. It's like, I need to go hide in the pantry. But I went in this dark pantry and just like cried as I sat on the phone with the woman in HR who was a friend of mine. I had known her for years. Our company had probably about 12,000 people. So, so many that you're always meeting somebody new, but also given that I'd spent so much time there, I knew a lot of people, and I was both surprised. I was extra offended. I think that was like, I was butthurt because I had put so much of myself into that organization. I had a direct report who had a lot less tenure than I did in the industry that was making significantly more. I worked my ass off for pay that was many, many figures beneath the people who were my peers and doing the same amount of work and the same, contributing to the organization in the same level that I was. And I just trusted that this organization would take care of me because they knew that I had delivered results for them. They knew that I had given so much to them. And that's just not how it transpired. So it was just such a wake-up call to me that at the end of the day, corporate is corporate and they're in it for themselves. And I also was very surprised and disappointed by many of the leaders that let that happen, that had plenty of great things they could have done with me but it would have just inconvenienced them just a touch to figure out what that was in the beginning. And they were so invested in their game that they weren't willing to do that. And it was just it was an eye opener. It was a very disruptive life experience for me and completely reset my perspective on my relationship with corporate and my relationship in serving others so selflessly without actually reserving a little bit of gas left in the tank for me. Because I did not have, I had given so much of myself away, and I resent that I missed so many early years with my boys because I was serving somebody else as opposed to serving me.
Do you think, in your opinion, that's more common of women? Do you think there is more of that expectation on women?
Oh, 100%. And I think that that's because we are still trying to prove ourselves and we are not given the same grace that men are. I think women of color feel that even more than we do, Megan, as white women. But women holistically feel like we have to be perfect all the time because if not, we are scrutinized. And part of that level of perfection that standard we carry for ourselves is constantly feeling like we have to prove ourselves, like we have to give ourselves away for free. And that's part of what has led me to this back half of my career around helping women navigate that standard because it's so unfair.
What did you do after that layoff? So I'm assuming at some point you came out of the pantry.
I came out of the pantry and it took, oh gosh, the first couple days, I mean, the amount of crying I did was ridiculous. I was just, I give hard to anything in my life. I'm 120%er and I had a lot of healing I needed to do. So first thing I did was take myself to the beach and after
Good choice.
I know, right. And got a computer. I mean, I started with them in 2007. So all of my life was on that computer. And I think that was part of why I was just so panicked is I gave a lot, or had a lot truly like in bed with that company because I needed to remove my personal life from there and extract it so I didn't lose literally everything. I was coming off of 16 years of my contacts, my calendar, all of my personal documents, even my resume for that matter, like literally everything was on that computer. So beyond that, I had so many conversations with so many people trying to figure out what's next for me because I knew I didn't want to go into consulting. I was fairly sure I didn't even want to go back to a partnership or professional services at all because the industry is very intense. And partnerships, if you're not a partner, even if you just, while not to diminish the responsibility that partners carry, but you're never really treated as a leader of an organization if you're not a partner. And if you're not going to be revenue generating, then you're probably not going to be partners. So I knew I needed to find a completely different industry and a completely new reset. And that was a little intimidating. And it was in those conversations that I realized I have a deeper purpose here that I was not actually fulfilling. And that was serving others. So when people were asking me, what is it that you enjoy the most? What is it that lights you up? Why do people come to you beyond work? I was like, oh, well, that's easy. They come to me because I have figured out working mom life. Like I spend a lot of hours at work, but I spend a lot of hours doing life. And it was through those 100-person conversations that got me to a point where I was realizing there might be something there that is a bigger calling than just serving corporate.
Do you remember how long that process took as you were starting to realize maybe this is an area that I should explore? Was it a couple of weeks? Was it a couple of months?
It was a couple months realistically. So I departed in May and fast forward, I opened an LLC in July. So it happened I think quickly for most people. And I think part of what made it possible, Megan, is I was really clear on the type of life I wanted to build. But I would say it was less about the time and more about the transactions because I probably had 50 conversations with people that were at all walks of life and most of which were new to me. relationships that I'd never met before. And I think it was through the transactions of talking to those 50 people that got me to a place of where I knew what I wanted to do long term, but also what I needed to do short term, which was unfortunately go back to corporate and save money.
How did you balance what must have felt like two competing needs? And what emotions came with realizing you had to go back to work and back into a corporate life in order to do what you really wanted to do with your life?
Yeah. So I'm going to actually jump a couple steps ahead in order to go backwards. And that's to the punchline of what it is that I do. Right now, my full-time job is to coach women, either budding executives, but mostly working moms on work-life balance and how to build a completely aligned life. So they are also able to maximize with uh, complete time and stress freedom. So I share that as a very critical background to say I did exactly what I teach the women in my program to do and the women that I coach to do. And I managed the heck out of my life. So that way I was able to both live this corporate life, this new corporate life, and still build a business. I was easily working 80 hours a week and I went back to corporate. Not just went back to corporate, but I decided if I'm going to go back in order to save face for myself after being eliminated from my last company, I wanted to just prove to myself and to the world, like, y'all, I don't need you. I can have a big girl job without you. I don't need this, college to 16-year later career in order to do that. So I did. I went out and got a big role leading culture and engagement at a Fortune 50. And I knew from the very beginning that not just that organization, but corporate as a whole was not my calling. I needed to go and serve working moms specifically and help them not lose themselves. That's a journey I had to go through myself too when I was working for my old company. When I welcomed my second, I was quite humbled and kind of knocked off my feet a little bit and needed to figure out how to design a life that would allow me to have a demanding career and still be a present mom. So I knew that helping other moms figure that out and navigate that was really important, but I needed to pay the bills and I needed to give myself a little runway to build the brand, to figure out how to coach effectively, how to build a business, which has been a very humbling experience. It's very, very different
Yes.
than corporate. That was tough. That was weird. It still continues to be weird. I learn every day. I am constantly impressed by people who have been successful and profitable in it. So I knew I needed that runway, but I also just really wanted to sink my teeth into a big role and getting my LLC to a place where it could eventually support me, or at least was mature enough that I would feel comfortable walking away from corporate and knowing that if I take this big leap in, then hopefully I'm going to get to where I want to go. I needed to have the confidence that I could go all in and know that faith and hard work were going to carry me the rest of the way.
In the moment, did it feel like doing both of those roles at the same time was the right choice? Were you confident in that?
No, I remember sitting at the lake one day and my parents and they live in a condominium and on the lake, and two of their friends were out on the dock with us, and they were just like, "You're going to get laid off, Courtney." I was like, "No way. No way that'll happen to me. I take care of my company. They know me. They would never let that happen to me." Like, I felt very confident in that, and sure as shit it happened. So I thought, okay, if it's going to happen somewhere where I had a strong brand, where they got to see the value I drove. I was cheap, by the way. I made very, very, very little compared to people who contributed a lot less than me and were paid double. So that also was in my mind protecting me. And it ended up not being any of that. I was giving myself away for free. I was sacrificing my compensation. I was sacrificing my time for myself, my time to invest in myself, my free time, however I wanted to spend it for this company that at the end of the day did not take care of me at all. And in fact took advantage of me. So I just wanted to make sure that I controlled my destiny and never wanted to give that much power away again to anybody, but most especially corporate, because I knew if the company of 16 years that I so loved and cherished and was like the biggest cheerleader for was willing to do that, then certainly anywhere I went to that was new would.
You talked a few minutes ago about the mental load, which I think everyone carries. I think moms and working moms especially, but even in your job, you can have the mental tasks that are constantly going through your head, the to-do lists, everything you need to get done. How can anyone in any of those roles prevent the to-do list from taking over?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Megan. And it's a complex one. At the end of the day, your to-do list is a direct reflection of what it is that you value. And what you value influences what you prioritize, and what you prioritize influences how you spend your resources being your time, your money, and your energy. So this is the exact kind of thing that I start with my clients on. I get really grounded with them on that, because when they're grounded on that, it informs what your to-do list should be. And of course, in work, part of that is what you are being measured by, and getting super clear in what you're being measured by, as opposed to spinning up other work for yourself just because you want to. That is part of what I always did, which is giving myself away for free. I saw opportunity and I chased it, and I was given the freedom to do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was the right thing for me to do. But at the end of the day, most people, when they're grounded on their values, it helps them navigate. It informs how they're spending their time and their money and their energy. And if you think about your to-do list, it is your time and your energy that is being expended over and over and over. So that's part one. Part two is just recognizing and calling out for yourself the difference between an actual to-do and a wish list. The mental load that you just called out, Megan, is often not your to-do list. It's your wish list. So what I mean by that is your wish list of things like, I need to organize the pantry. I need to go through my kids' closets and get out all the clothes that don't fit. Those are wish list items. Literally, they can wait years if they need to, and nothing's going to fall apart. But your to-do list is either something tied to, like at work, it's directly tied to your responsibilities that you are being measured to do in your performance review. Or at home, it's things like, I need to pay this bill. I need to cancel the subscription before it renews on this date. Those are things that have to get done. They are normally time bound. They are normally, they have direct implications if they don't get done. So I always challenge people, like, if you have to do the thing, that gets put on your to-do list. And if you actually manage your to-do list effectively, then it's going to help manage your mental load, because you're not carrying the weight of that. I actually have a document that I'm happy to share. It's you can get it at workingmomsmovement.com/to-do, TODO, but it talks about the difference between a to-do wish and a wish list. And I think that just being grounded on your values and being aware of the difference between a to-do and a wish list will help you be more productive in what you manage, but most especially help you manage that mental load. So that way you're not carrying stuff that is actually not yours to carry, because at the end of the day, it just doesn't matter.
I use the Eisenhower Matrix, and there's actually an app out there that I downloaded probably like 6 or 7. I remember it was right before Christmas, because it was the Christmas stress of last year. But it does break it down to, like must do, should do, could do, and then basically like you said, stuff that you could probably go years. And as you were just saying that, I had two thoughts. One was, I have not opened that app in like 3 months, and I probably should go dust it off. So maybe everything in that app was a nice to do or a wish list item, because I haven't tackled them yet. But it also made me think, with the ones that I even put on there, what does it say about what I value? I know, for example, one of them on there is God Lover. I have not mailed my best friend's Christmas gift, and it is August 1st as of this recording. And she knows. But that list item, go to post office and mail gift to Tiffany, has been on there. But I realized as you were talking, well, it's on there because I value the friendship, and I want to prioritize my friendship with her, even though I am terrible at going to the post office and mailing her Christmas gift. But you just rejiggered how I look at what I write down and what I want to do, and what does it say about me and what I value. That is amazing.
Yeah, the Eisenhower matrix, essentially, for those of y'all that aren't familiar, forces you to identify the urgency and level of importance of something. So if you think about something like your health that is important but not urgent, you will never actually get that done if you are prioritizing all of the unimportant but urgent things. So unimportant but urgent things is probably something like your inbox. And so often the mental load that we carry, going back to where this started, Megan, actually sits with other people's to-do lists. Like our inbox is more than likely 90% someone else's to-do list, not ours. And it's not the pressing important things that you actually have to get done.
I think that also leads to another topic, burnout. Burnout is, in my opinion, often invisible, but incredibly intense. And I have felt it over the course of my career and in my life. Can you share what burnout looked like for you, if you've experienced it? And how does that awareness shape how you define success today?
Yes, I have experienced burnout. So I briefly alluded to why I started Working Moms Movement. And it was because I figured out how to do all the things. But what I did not share is the story of how I got there and how I doubled down on creating my own. I call it the life management system. It's what my podcast is called. It's what my program's called. And my life management system was founded because I reached burnout. When I went back to consulting, the reason I decided not to become partner is I hit massive burnout. I cannot turn off work. I'm a very accountable person. I'm a very driven person, and I will continue going and going and going. And I did that and was not able to manage the boundaries for myself at that time. Now I'm much more grounded in boundaries, and it's part of what I help people with. But at the time I was not. And what happened is I was undiagnosed, but very clinically, uh, the symptoms, I guess, were very clinical around burnout. And it was things like not being able to sleep. I had massive sleep anxiety. So I couldn't go to sleep because my mind was so full. And then I'd wake up in the middle of the night and couldn't go back to sleep because it was so full. I probably slept about 3 hours a night. I had such massive sleep anxiety. I was snapping at my family. Very, very clinical type symptoms for some people. It's numbing out, just completely checking out, needing to look at their phone, needing to doomsday scroll or look at TV, just kind of going through the motions. But my burnout is what was my wake up call, where I realized this is very unfair to me. It's unfair to my family. And it's not the type of parent that I want to be. It's not the type of friend or sister or daughter that I want to be. So I need to do something different. So success for me today, more than anything, is being present for my family and caring for my own health. Because I also, when at that stage in life, I can't remember the last time I worked out. And I was a 6-sport varsity athlete. Like, I loved working out. I cared very much for my body. I cared very much for being healthy. And I wasn't doing any of that because I was just working and working and working, working, working. And again, giving myself away for free. So I think that burnout can look different for different people. And a lot of people aren't actually in what I would say is a clinical burnout diagnosis, but they're trending that way. And those are the ones that have the best opportunity to reset their lives. Those are the ones that right now can start reorienting themselves.
What do you say to the people that feel, and this isn't the right way to phrase it, but burnout is a badge of honor?
Yeah, it happens a lot. And what I would say is, like, evaluate the risk of that for yourself against your values. You are being driven by something else, whether that be money or whether that be your brand or whether that be other people's perception of you, but you're giving all your power away when you do that. And it happens even more in women because, as we talked about earlier, Megan, it's the pressure of feeling like we have to be perfect all the time. But guess what? You don't have to do it alone. And that was one of my biggest insights, is I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders by myself instead of actually using the army of people around me. Even at work, I would stay up late at night and do somebody else's work instead of giving it to my team because I didn't want to have to inconvenience them. But yet they were never working that late because I was taking it all on for them. So I think that part of it for me was just recognizing the incongruence of what it is that I valued versus how I was actually showing up and how I was spending my time. If you are wearing burnout as a badge of honor, you're probably doing that because you think other people expect that of you, or that other people are thinking of that as a brand builder and like it's impressive. But more and more and more, thankfully, society is acknowledging that that's not really the case. And I attribute the upcoming generations for that because they see us as their parents, as their examples, burning out and going a million miles a minute. And they're like, you know what? That's not for me. So kudos to them for being a lot wiser than we've been about it and putting up and actually honoring very strict boundaries around that.
I also think burnout, in my opinion, stems from, whether it's real or not, a perception that I will be liked if I do all these things. I will be successful if I do all these things. I will be, almost to your point with your first, with your career, with your consultancy, I will be protected. You can be taking less money. You can be foregoing promotions. You can be working 80-hour weeks, and you can be the person that knows where the bodies are buried and where the skeletons are in the closet and still have that career or that job end.
Yeah. And apropos to your entire podcast, Megan, when you do that, everything's taken away from you because that was so much of my identity. I would say working was a bigger identity for me than being a mom. And I'd wanted to be a mom my entire life. Every decision I had made since I was in 9th grade was with this vision of being a mom. Yet on a day-to-day basis, I was much more wrapped up in being a contributor to that company than I was anything. My friendships were all there. Like everything was there. And because I had so much tied up there, when I lost it, there was a lot that was taken away. And that was only my fault. Like that was my doing because I did not protect my own priorities and my own values. And if I had started with that, even something simple like my health, then I would have never found myself being so splintered when that termination happened.
As our last few questions, let's talk about the Working Moms movement. What is coming up for you? What is in the future for that?
Well, so I just left corporate. It has been 2 weeks, I guess 2 weeks in the making.
Ooh.
So very, very new. And I'm going all in on Working Moms movement. I have spent the past couple years building that brand, building my podcast, very under the radar from corporate because I, particularly leading culture, wanted to make sure that I was a steward of my day job as a priority and just moonlighted and did not sleep much trying to pour into building this. But ultimately, Megan, I help moms, like the simplest form is I help working moms go from surviving to thriving. I also do a lot of speaking in corporations. I do a lot of workshops. Naturally, those are not mom related. Those are more general for either caregivers or women leaders, or even more generic and open to the company. But I do a lot of speaking and workshops on work-life balance and how you can actually tactically live a balanced life, because it doesn't have to be the burnout stage that we just talked about. And I mean, I've been there and I've come around to the other side. It is why I'm able to do what I'm doing. So I think that the future of Working Moms movement is helping at an absolute minimum, helping working moms see that it doesn't have to be this way. And then best case scenario, my group program is flourishing and I'm helping and working with tons of moms where I'm making a very tactical day-to-day difference for them, where they get through the next 18 years of being a parent and are able to look back and say, thank goodness I didn't miss this. Thank goodness I had a different way of doing things. I'm helping stop the cycle for the next generation, because if our kids see us running this hamster wheel, not only do they not get the joy of experiencing us as a stress-free parent, but they also are likely to think that this is how you do things. So
Mhm.
my hope is that it flourishes. Time will tell, but I feel like I have been called to do this. And I think that going back to your question about my transition, after losing my job, I felt really called to do this. Every door that I opened seemed to point in this direction. So I'm trusting that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be and that other people will join me in this movement.
You have worked with organizations on culture change. So as we wrap up, what are the biggest gaps you see with organizations and how they support working parents?
Oh, yeah. So I've spent the past 12 years in corporate culture, leading corporate culture, both at my old organization and the Fortune 50 that I worked at. And I think the most foundational one is just freaking demonstrating you care. I mean, there was somebody, as an example, just last week. It was a friend of mine that I met on LinkedIn, and he just left an organization. And said, his boss is a female and a parent, by the way, which was very disappointing. But he said, I don't think she even knows that I have a 12-year-old kid. Like, I think she literally doesn't even know. That's how little she cared to get to know her team. As a parent herself, she didn't even care to ask, hey, what's important to you and what do you value? So I think the biggest thing is just demonstrating you care. That's so easy. It's free. And guess what? It can take 30 seconds at the start of a call. 30 seconds is all it takes for somebody to feel seen and heard. That's it. Um, the other thing is, I think, just asking people how they need to be supported. Because as an example, and I come from banking, that's where I've spent the past couple of years. And we have tellers that have to pay for extra childcare at a salary they can't even really afford to do because the branch doesn't close until, you know, the worst time ever. Well, if their manager just asks like, hey, what do you need? She could say, you know what I'd really need to leave 15 minutes early, because that 15 minutes is the difference between me paying $500 a week in after school care or nothing. That's so easy to fix. So I think we also need to just we need to ask each individual what support they need, because oftentimes it's not elaborate. It's something very simple and can make the difference between a fully engaged employee versus somebody who's looking to walk out the door.
I feel like what you're describing is also just make your employees feel seen.
Yeah.
Make them feel like you know who I am. They don't have to know the daily ins and outs, but they see you for who you are, good and bad, the struggles that you may face. You have kids, you have other priorities. They just want to feel seen.
Yep. That's up.
So I end every episode with a lightning round of fun and work-related questions. So are you ready for your lightning round?
Let's do it.
Okay. Road trip or flying?
Oh, flying. So much waste of time. Like, you're talking to an industrial and systems engineer, Megan. Like, if I don't have to waste time, I'm not going to do it. It's part of what I teach in my program. And flying gets you there in half the time.
Window or aisle?
Window. And it's because I have a pile of crap that I just stack against the window. You can't do that on an aisle. Like, I need to be able to throw my big puffer jacket when I go to Colorado to see you, as an example. I need to be able to throw my puffy jacket like on the side. And I don't know. I hate checking a bag, and it's much easier to not check a bag if you can throw all your crap against the window.
What was your last Google search?
Myself.
Oh,
I follow this business coach, and I work with one myself. I'm a big believer in growth. So yes, I'm a coach, and yes, of course, I work with one. And she was just like, you need to set up a Google alert for any time your name is used, your brand is used. And I did that. And part of doing that is to naturally start with Googling yourself and seeing what happens.
what is your favorite thing in your home office?
Oh, ooh. Probably, I don't know. I've got a frame TV, and I love that because it's constantly moving and it's beautiful. But I also always keep a lit candle beside my desk. And there's something
Oh.
about that, a lamp and a lamp. So just the ambiance of having this lamp, this desk lamp and the candle lit is just really important to me feeling at peace when I'm in my office because I spend a lot of time here, especially now. I was going into the office when I was in corporate 3 days a week. But now that I am a full-time entrepreneur, I spend a lot of time in this place.
You have to. I feel like you have to make it a place that you want to be. We talked about this. My home office was the first place I decorated, and I went all in because I knew I was going to spend all my time in this little room. So it had to be a place that I wanted to be day in and day out. Name 3 of the 7 dwarfs.
Dopey, Sneezy, and Duck.
Good job.
What a funny question, by the way.
I like to keep people on their toes. Favorite city in the U.S.?
Ooh, probably DC. I really, really like DC. Fernandina and like right outside of Jacksonville, Florida is also a really cute one. It's if you're looking for something off the radar that most people aren't aware of, it's in Amelia Island. So Fernandina is a close second, but Washington DC just has my heart. I miss it. Not enough to move back, but it's awesome.
Who is your first celebrity crush?
Oh, Thomas Gyrie. He was in Lassie, and Lassie was filmed in Little Townsville, Virginia, where I grew up. And then for anybody who doesn't know Thomas Gyrie, he also played Smalls in Sandlot, which is a millennial fave. So most people know Thomas Gyrie as Smalls. But a lot of people that I do were, including my 3rd grade teacher, I was in 3rd grade when it came out, were in Lassie, and I got to trick or treat with a lot of the actors and actresses. Michelle Williams was actually in it. She was another big name that was in it. Yeah. So anyway, Thomas Gyrie's it.
I like it. What does someone have to do to earn your respect?
Integrity. I really, really value integrity. When you do things that are just under the radar, nasty, or in service to yourself, or you say one thing and do another, like that's an instant no for me.
I would agree. What is a lie you tell your kids?
Oh, that I'm going to sleep right after them. I think now they know that they can probably find me in the office. It was more so, of course, when I was like moonlighting in this business, I would spend many hours here, but I would always, when they'd want to play or whatever, I'm like, no, I got to go to sleep too. I'm go to bed. Wrong.
According to my kids, Disneyland has been closed for 6 years. And last, what is a fashion trend that you participated in that you hope no one knows and now will?
Oh, gosh. For whatever reason, what's coming to mind is a bucket hat. And now those
lots of bucket hats.
Yes. And I very unflattering. I actually I've skipped all the styles. Now I know what works for me and I just do that. Like I'm going to stay in skinny jeans. You can forget your 90s jeans. I'm going to stay and I can't even do those big clunky sandals. They don't work for me. I have big long feet and I'm really short. So I wear really reefs. Reefs are very narrow for very narrow feet. But so I just do myself. I don't often chase whatever fad. But I think back to some of my pictures in middle school, particularly, where I was always wearing a bucket hat. I'm like, gosh, that did not work for me. And then I'll be darned. I picked my boys up from overnight camp last week, and my son came back with a bucket hat. That's what he wanted to spend his store money on. I was like, oh, it doesn't look good on him either. They're not my thing. I never stopped wearing scrunchies. I've worn scrunchies my entire life. And I was called out on it. I was DDing once in college, and a girl got in my back seat and she was like, oh my God, you're wearing a scrunchie. I was like, and she was like, I haven't seen those in like 10 years. I'm like, really? Because I've never stopped wearing them. I don't know.
I love scrunchies.
Yeah. I love scrunchies.
Well, Courtney, where can people find you?
Oh, thank you for asking. Well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Courtney Cecil Anderson, please send me a message. Let me know that this is where you found me, because Megan will also appreciate that there are people out there listening. I will make sure to let her know. You can find me on Instagram at Working Moms Movement. And if you are interested in getting the list of how you can more productively manage your to-do list and some insight on what that looks like that I talked about earlier, you can get that at workingmomsmovement.com/todo, TODO.
Thank you so much for coming on. I know it's early, your time. This has been a fantastic conversation. You've had so many good insights. I appreciate you being so honest about your experiences. I'm so looking forward, like I said, to seeing what Working Moms Movement does, but I really, really appreciate you coming on.
Oh my gosh, Megan, thank you for having me. Thank you for the service for others that are going through the messy middle themselves, because I think sometimes misery loves company, and it's just good to feel that you're not alone and that you can be a very, very, very strong contributor to the world and still have bumps along the way. It's part of the journey. So thanks again for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Middle. If today's story resonated with you, drop a subscribe, share the episode, and let's keep these conversations going. Until next time, remember, your story isn't over. You're just in the middle.